Yeah, and we can let. And the other thing about that is we're letting the substantively true internet help speak for us and validate our claims, which
I agree.
It's a good thing everybody trusts that.
The substantively true internet. Could you say that one more time? I didn't follow.
We're entrusting the internet, which everybody knows is 1,000% correct all the time, to validate our claims, which is beautiful. Like, let's talk about the Nordic blonde race of aliens. There's some conjecture. We could look up some great stuff and validate whatever claims you guys. You can take the test to see if you're a Nordic alien online.
I don't do those tests.
I already know that I am. I just can feel it in my bones.
I don't know what any of that means, but I know that I don't do these tests.
There's just something Nordic and alien about me, and I have no proof of either of those things. There's just something that it just rings true.
So we're live, man. This is episode.
Oh, this is
205, right?
Wait, did we just kick off without an intro jingle?
We might.
We got to do the countdown. 3.
Oh, like on live TV. Well, no, we can't do that. There's no editing. This is already. It's too late.
Jingle.
There you go.
Better get together. Out your info is the intro jingle. How's your signal? Intro jingle. Gotta talk with my buddies for a minute. Intro jingle. In a couple minute hours, we'll be finished. Couple minute hours.
Minute hours is my favorite part of that. That was good.
All right.
Minute hours. It's like New York minute, but it's like Flawedcast hours.
Yeah. Hours.
Like you can listen to an hour of our back and forth, and it's basically a minute worth of information or valuable time.
Right, but it's going to take you 2 hours to get there.
Yeah. So I think without further ado, this would be a great time to revisit Predict It, because we can actually show this now, and I think it's quite interesting. And therefore, I'm just going to log in real quick so that
because you're making money by the day already.
No, I don't know if I'm making
bank.
Money.
You're making bank on weird conspiracies. I can see it.
No. In fact, I've lost 99 cents. Okay, so without further ado, I'll show you what's going on. Here we go. So I'm called Bobby Thane. I'm a novice. You see what I'm saying? But I bought a little bit of Nikki Haley and Mitt Romney being the GOP Republican nominee.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I don't believe this motherfucker is going to be around anymore. Will he be impeached? About some of that too. So I'm losing on Mitt Romney.
Wait,
that's cool.
Let me ask you something though.
Yeah.
I get the Nikki Haley thing. It matches. It meets the mirror test. Can you look yourself in the mirror for what you just bought? It meets the mirror test because you've been advocating that Nikki Haley is going to be the candidate. It makes sense that you would buy stock in that outcome. Yeah. I'm fine with it. I am very much questioning the Mitt Romney purchase.
Well,
where's that coming from?
I think he's been lurking and positioning himself, hoping to take some table scraps if it all gets fucking, the cloth gets pulled off. And it's looking like that might happen. Excuse me. So I think, it seems it's not out of the question.
Okay, he's the type of person that thinks of
that you don't want to happen.
Oh yeah, this isn't about want.
Yeah.
This is about.
Yeah.
I don't want.
I mean, it makes sense that you would
Nikki
want
Haley for president.
It makes sense that you would want Nikki Haley to be the candidate because you've been predicting it. So
I wouldn't want her. I think she's actually probably more forward.
She's more dangerous than Mitt Romney, even. Yeah.
Yeah.
What Mitt Romney wants.
By the way,
and this is the type of politician.
Totally.
Mitt Romney sees running for the presidency, I think, as a lot of other people do, as not only an opportunity for the vice presidency as well, but also a chance for some great cabinet positions and, secretariats. So showing your face, being present to the nation and running to represent your party in the presidential is a really great way to play yourself into the next administration's graces. It's interesting how that works.
What do you think is the price right now for would Mitt Romney accept being the vice president for Nikki Haley?
right now.
Wait,
no,
what?
because he's
What do you
still
think
wanting-
that would be worth right? Like right now to buy that stock, it's a penny or less, right?
For what? Mitt
I
Romney?
think whether
6
Mitt
cents.
Romney would be the vice president candidate under Nikki Haley.
Oh.
If that turned out to be the card, would Mitt Romney accept that?
Yeah, he'd accept
He'd
it.
accept it. He'd accept anything. He doesn't care. He's not got a
He
lot
would
of shame
take
and a lot
Yeah.
of desire to be
He'd
more
be stoked for
have more of a legacy. Okay,
Absolutely.
so look, we got Nikki Haley and Mitt Romney. I got 25 shares in each of those guys at 7 and 6 cents a piece. I've lost 8 cents. Or I've
Mitt
lost
Romney's
a little
bet.
bit
2 cents.
on Mitt Romney per share, I guess.
No. That's not how much you've lost, Rob. That's the average paid going down over time. So the average paid right now is 8 cents, and that's down 2 cents from where it was, which was 10 cents.
Mm.
You paid 6 cents, and it's staying at 6 cents. It looks like the latest paid is 6 cents. So
Yeah.
you paid. Where's what you paid?
I don't see what you
average
paid.
latest shares.
I don't see the
I've
value
got
for what.
25 shares. I paid
Yeah.
an average of 8 cents per share.
Oh, you paid 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're now 6 cents, and I've lost 2 cents per share.
Oh, I thought that
So
was the
50
site
cents.
average.
50 cents.
I thought
is
that
what
was the
you lost.
site average paid.
Yeah, that's what I
I've
thought
been
too at
reading
first.
the wrong way.
Yeah. See, and I've lost a total of 99 cents out of my $10 that I put into this.
Good for you, Rob.
For
All right.
losing 99 cents? Yeah.
Hey, you're
you.
playing the game. Let's look
Yeah.
at ourselves again.
Okay, but you guys should probably be predicting stuff, don't you think?
I think I like
so
that idea.
I'm
I think
trying to
that's
log
good.
into my predicted account now, and I'm having fucking authentication problems. So I'm gonna stop messing with it.
All right.
I think
But-
screen shares are
Actually, I have
think
the
we should,
app. I have the app on my phone, but whatever. One of the things
Android.
I was curious about, Rob, is it's
what?
no, I'm joking.
You okay, buddy?
Um,
Are you choking or joking?
Oh, that's a good one.
both. I have a hard time, honestly, buying stock on predicted or things, or really just in general, in things that I legitimately don't want to happen. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but I
and
mean,
just the outcomes I just don't want.
I think there's two different things, like buying stock in like a weapons manufacturer versus betting that the Republicans will pick this guy or that guy. Like, one is you profiting from the thing, like it's in your best interest for it to happen
Right. Sure. Yeah.
in a different way. I don't know. I hear what you're
right.
saying.
Yeah.
but-
No, it's definitely not that. That's a much more egregious. What a crime.
But what's the point
It's your
at
conscience.
which, and I think we love to go down this road of conjecture, where if enough time and energy is spent on predicted, and people are looking at that daily and wondering how their
right.
stocks are doing,
Right.
when is that now a new political tool
It is.
for
Yeah.
candidates to invest in self?
Right.
And then sell off or know when to cut their losses,
Game the system,
and then
yeah.
screw up a debate and then make $1 million on the back end. Like, I just blew that debate, so my shares dropped, but I sold them the minute before I went in for the debate. So, boom, I'm rich.
I like where you've gone
right.
with this. I think it might be happening now. Maybe Putin's behind the whole shit.
Oh yeah.
He's
Well,
just
I mean,
getting
like,
rich.
to me, as much as I enjoy engaging in predict it, and it's very new to me, I have to admit that it feels an awful lot like a higher it feels an awful lot like Mr. Robot meets Idiocracy. Like it's like the darker version of
It feels
Idiocracy.
idiocracy-ish to me
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, I guess it's like it's just crazy that there's money in it, but
So a good point was made the other day that it would be really cool if before each candidate went out on the debate stage, they were given a jacket made to wear it by whichever affiliation was putting it on that had their listed corporate donorship emblems all over them.
I love it. I love
it.
Because
I gotta love how Elizabeth Warren, did you guys watch the debate last night?
Yeah.
No.
When she was getting called out by Kamala Harris for not getting after Trump's tweet, she kept responding without naming her 3 times, I believe, by saying, wouldn't it be interesting, because Bernie I did it, we're not taking any big pharma money, but it would be interesting if all the people on the stage would reveal where they got their money from. And she was clearly talking back to Kamala. And it's like, yeah, she's taking big money. And, here. So, and Elizabeth's calling her out on that indirectly as soon as she's challenged without really responding to the tweet remark. I don't know. I thought if you engaged in that sort of thing, neither side really came out looking that good. I think it was like, that was a mutual, a Pyrrhic victory. Nobody came out unbruised. And so I thought the couple engagements I saw along those lines weren't to anybody's well-being. When Biden got weird with Warren, she probably looked a little better than he did in that exchange. But
what was that exchange when he said she did a good job in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau?
Well, he was trying to take credit for the American Affordable Care Act, basically, right? And she was like, "Yes, Obama did a great job of passing that into effect," and he took to that by calling her out on one of her pieces of legislation and being like, "Yeah, you did a great job at your job. You did a good job at your job." How he said it. And she says, "Thanks."
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I heard that was awkward. I saw some I was with the baby and shit, so I didn't I wasn't fully engaged at all times. But you know who's a weirdo? What did I call my baby?
Nothing.
What about the Tulsi Gabbard? What a weirdo.
Oh, dislike.
Yeah, she's so weird. Yeah. She wears like an all white. She's wearing all white. And I think she did that the last debate too, like this, just like pure innocent kind of energy. Yeah. And she's like anti-war, which is great, but like she's like anti-war in a very like peculiar way. I don't know.
She's anti-war and pro everybody having guns. It's kind of trippy.
Yeah, she's kind of like a Republican, it seems like, because she was also like they were like asking her about impeachment. And she's like, well, if it's this hyper-partisan, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there's nothing hyper-partisan about this shit. It's just straight up a criminal continuing to commit crimes. And
straightforward.
Yeah. So, anyway.
By his own confession.
Right. So, I don't know, man. But I would say it was an interesting debate. And just to get into the technical, because I think Mishak might appreciate this. The first debate was MSNBC, I believe. And it was like... the sound got all fucked up, like something like the camera. There were like bloopers and shit within like the first 10 minutes. This CNN New York Times debate was dialed in, I would say, because they had 12 fucking candidates out there, and they would zoom into one or another, but it never really felt like there was 12 at a time. And sometimes they split screen from people like across the stage, but it would just kind of seem like they were next to each other the way they did it. And it was very seamless. Wouldn't you say, Bjorn?
I did like the way it was filmed. There was a moment where they had Sanders, Biden, and Warren all singled out, that trio. Mm-hmm. And then was it Book? I think it might have been Booker that was just next to Sanders. Was
Probably.
It Booker? They expanded the shot to include Booker really seamlessly because he'd started making a comment. Right. And it had been across and kind of directed to the three of them. So they just went from the 3 to the 4.
Like it's
as soon as he started talking, it was really nicely
done.
These
guys, yeah, I would have to say they got this.
I know this.
When was the last debate? What was the date of the last debate?
That was October 15th, 2019.
Oh, last night. Got it. Okay.
Like
so they haven't posted it yet. I was checking my old employer's website to see if they've posted a songification of the latest debate.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now
the Gregorian brothers.
Yeah, they posted something a few days ago, but it wasn't this. They did post they did songify the whichever debate was 3 months ago. To your point, Rob, the reason I was thinking about it is I was in New York for that debate, the MSNBC debate.
At the debate?
No, I was in New York on my way to go overseas, and I stopped by my old employer, the Gregory brothers, said hello, and it just happened to be timed the night before that debate. And I went by and said hi and caught up with them for a little while and found out that they were a little bit understaffed for the next night, so they needed some help. So I went back in the next night to help, whatever editing they were gonna need to do. For our listeners who aren't caught up with it, the Gregory brothers, also known as Shmo Yoho. Let me share my screen. I can show it real quick. I'm getting to a point here, Rob, relating to that debate and the technicalities for how that first debate was set up. So Shmo Yoho is the Gregory brothers, these three gentlemen, and Sarah, the fourth brother. And what they do, in addition to a whole bunch of other crazy videos, is they songify debates. So they basically put, dancing bodies on the talking heads of politicians and give them guitars and flaming swords and whatever. So it's fun and funny stuff, right? But technically speaking, bless you, technically, this is an interesting process. I may make sure I can keep the audio off. This is a really interesting process because what's happening is we're slicing up these camera angles and then cutting actual video clips of mouths moving while we reframe all of the audio.
Guy.
So we're just rebuilding frame by frame the video that matches the audio that we need. So that first debate on MSNBC was so frustrating because basically it was just one camera kind of roaming around the screen, and it was really hard to get nailed down. It was like this constantly handheld motion that's dragging everywhere. So we had to use all these really close-up shots of everything. And then cut away to NBC News and CBS and whatever versions of the clips, so that those were more useful because the MSNBC version was useless. So even these shots, you can see that the audience is floating in the background behind them because it's composite. We just made up that audience from a whole bunch of different clips. Okay. There were so many problems with this process because MSNBC was a fucking mess of a production. When they did the first debate, it was a nightmare. These guys do this professionally. We do this professionally all the time, and usually this kind of stuff is really easy to grab. But for MSNBC, it was a mess. This audio is fantastic. You should definitely check it out.
It really does make me wish that's what actually happened.
Right.
Oh God!
Can we talk about Kate McKinnon as Elizabeth Warren, because she has captured that woman
yes, she has.
Unbelievably. Have you seen it, Bjorn?
The who? What? Sorry, I was too caught up in what we're seeing here. Let's go back to what we're talking about.
Kate McKinnon as Elizabeth Warren. It was kind of related.
I didn't see it. No.
Yeah.
It was related. Sorry, I just can't focus when something like that.
It's pretty intense.
No, I didn't see that.
Check it out. It's not a one. It's just she plays her and it's good. You should check it out at some point this season. She's awesome. Killing it.
I will. I love that. I love that for her. I can see it working really well. Exciting news. Right. So. What else is new?
World War III is basically the deal.
Yeah, that's the kind of the newest theme of the world, isn't it?
I don't know. Something's up, man. It feels weird.
Very first episode.
Meshach with the problems. Meshach's downloading signal.
Wait, did you guys? Oh, really? You lost me already? I can hear you fine. I got no break in my side at all. Can I hear you guys? I can hear you fine.
We
Yeah,
can
now I
hear
hear.
you.
We lost
Okay.
you for about
Continue, dear
20
Meshack.
Got it. In our very first episode, we talked about whether Donald Trump could possibly be the nominee, whether Hillary could possibly get the nomination.
Yeah.
Did we?
We all predicted very boldly, very confidently, there was absolutely no way that Donald Trump was going to get the nomination. That was insane.
Oh, yeah.
We all predicted that very confidently. That we could
I think that was like
break
December of
through
2015
that
or
nonsense.
something.
And he doesn't even want.
something.
Yeah, it was crazy. And we all predicted that Hillary was a shoo-in and she was going to win in a landslide and the country was going to flip. We all predicted that in various language.
Wow.
So what I'm curious right now is what are we predicting?
Well, you're
100 episodes from now.
Oh, wait. Well, 100 episodes from now. Wait. Speaking years.
What are we predicting?
I don't know how many.
Well,
how long?
You said it was 2015.
Yeah, it was.
So-
it was before Trump
So
got
4 years
nominated.
from now?
Almost
4 years from now?
years, yeah.
So you're saying next cycle, not this coming one, but the following one.
Right.
All right. Michelle Obama. If a Democrat isn't a successful president, Michelle Obama's coming back in for the knockout. I think she might have just gotten a PhD or a doctorate of sorts today, even. So she's geared up.
Do you think
ready
she
to
wants
rock.
it? Does she want it? She
It's
knows
not-
what it is. She's
I know.
already done that. I don't think she wants it because she knows what it is.
Yeah, but she's gonna feel called. She's the only woman that can save America. It might even happen before 2020.
I mean,
We'll see.
she's not wrong.
No, I know. I'm not making fun. I'm being serious.
She
It's
wouldn't
gonna
be
happen.
wrong in that scenario. Okay, I like
Well,
that.
Yeah,
Wasn't Kanye gonna run too?
he
For
might.
2020?
Sarah Palin will be back.
You're thinking Sarah Palin
She'll probably be president.
in 2024?
What if somehow, because Republicans have just gotten so stupid that like when Trump is impeached and it all goes downhill, it's not Mitt Romney, it's not Nikki Haley, it's Sarah Palin because they're just looking for the next stupidest asshole. You know what I mean? Like
That's fair.
who's
Idiocracy
also
right there.
just a bumbling nincompoop.
That mantle
Jerk.
falls to her very
Yeah.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they just draft her ass, and then she's
I like it.
the lead. And then they and then they start calling Democrats sexist and stuff, like a ton, because they have like a woman candidate, and they'll be like, "Oh, the Democrats are super sexist." Even if the Democrats have a woman too, they'll still somehow manage to say like and try to own it.
Hella dumbass suburban wives will buy it.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be
So
like,
wait,
"Yeah,
who's
the
next
sexist
in
Democrat."
that lineage? I'm just trying to
Oh,
process.
no.
Did you call it
hold
a
on.
Who's
lineage?
next in that lineage? Yes, the lineage.
Yeah.
Who's next in that lineage? It's Nikki Haley, then Sarah Palin, but like who's just a step below that?
A step below Sarah Palin? Michelle Bachmann, maybe?
She ain't. She got beat by Klobuchar.
No, because she was. Oh,
Who's
did
the
she
little
run for
blonde
the
chick
Senate?
who's on Fox News all the time?
Didn't she
The
get
little
Laura
blonde
Ingraham?
chick. No, like the young news reporter, like who's
Tommy
always just
Lauren.
talking. Tommy Lauren.
Lauren.
There you go. That's who's after Sarah Palin.
Now we're
Thank
digging deep. Oh, good.
Wait, when is this
Now
happening?
we're talking.
Tommy
No, now
Lauren
we're
over
saying-
Tucker Carlson.
Exactly.
What about motherfucking
That's
Zuckerberg
2024.
himself? What if he really shows his ass? What if he comes out and says, "Oh, I really have always wanted to run the world"? So
What if he teamed up with Putin? Zuckerberg Putin. That would be a killer ticket, dude.
Literally.
Yeah.
So, Putinberg,
Well, I was going to suggest.
Zucker Putin.
Putinberg is hard to read, man. Putinberg.
Wait, Zucker Putinberg? Is that a guy?
The
I think
irony.
we should create that character.
The irony of attaching
Vladimir.
a bird to a Vladimir in any way
Vladimir.
for candidate.
I think Zucker Putinberg as a dude.
I think
It's a great name.
Vladimir I think Vladimir is pretty powerful.
It is as well.
Vladimir. Like Vladimir Zucker Putinberg.
Yeah, but I think
Zucker Putinberg.
No. First name Zucker. Last name Putin.
I love that we added an to his name just because it makes sense. It's
not his name isn't Zuckerberg.
It's not Burger. I thought you said Zucker Putinberg.
I don't even know what names we're talking about anymore. But I will say, I think first name Zucker, last name Putinberg is a character somewhere in the world. That's like a detective or a journalist. Oh, that's like a journalist. Like on the byline.
You gave him
Zucker Putinberg.
No, you gave him like
Putin.
Okay. I mean, I'm thinking
Zucker
maybe
Putinberg
like
versus
a bad
Tucker
lawyer.
Carlson.
No, it would be like a bad pseudonym. Is that what it's called? Pseudonym? You know, like a fake name.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really a collabo by Mark and Vlad.
Yeah.
But their byline when they do it, they just claim to be a guy. Speaking of, the Trump Peter Navarro, he's like the economic advisor or something like that.
Heard the name.
He's written several books.
Trump economic? Is this person a child?
Well, he's in the administration. He's in the administration. He's written several books, and he cites often this economist called like Ron Farah or something like that. I don't know. And they just like the Washington Post just exposed that this economist that he cites isn't real. It's just like it's just like he'll write these books and like try to claim like so and so did this or that, and it's just so he got caught, and then he said like, oh, it's just like a creative device or something. Like he tried to just act like it wasn't. Yeah.
Okay.
And he advises
so just
the
follow me
president.
on
Yeah,
this.
that makes
I
sense.
think we are the perfect people. I think I have a new creed, a new destiny for the Flawedcast, and I think we are the perfect people for this. Combining our specific skills and interests, we should write a document for the future to be adopted in that way, right? We know enough. We've thought enough about how all this shit could work. We should just write it for the future as if it's real. Right? As if it matters, as if this is the truth, right?
Okay.
So
I'm with that.
Sure.
Yeah, like a declaration for the future world, like a new Bill of Rights, a revised Constitution, a declaration of the new humanity.
That's a little bit of a switch, but all right.
The new humanity.
So instead of a podcast, we're gonna write a blueprint for
let's talk about it, and somebody else can actually do the writing bit.
You know what? Actually, that's a good idea. And I would argue what we should do is have a few threads, and we can just switch channels and have a few nerds that write the stuff that we say out.
Yeah.
And because I want to also. Oh, I consider nerd. Scribe. Okay.
Nerds are all nerds. What are you talking about?
I'm a nerd. No, it's not a diss.
Yeah.
But I mean, you need special
these days.
Yeah, and I'm talking specialization when I say nerd. So I just mean someone who's good at what they do.
Then I'm not a nerd. Never mind.
But the nerds that we're looking for are for scribing, and recording.
Right.
But when we talk about the document for blueprinting utopia, that'd be like one guy or girl or they or them, and then another one would be about like the sci-fi book I wanted to write about the Wikipedia Foundation. So when we talk about that, boom, we just snap or clap or make a certain hand gesture, and that person can click in. Yeah, you get it.
I like.
So
see that, brother.
Yeah.
Issues.
So I guess when it comes to this document, Mishak, what do you want it to be about? You want to say that we are the future of...
What's your first proposition? Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is we got to predict the whole fucking kit and caboodle because we're obviously right all the time. We obviously
like
have
we were
this
in
figured
the very
out.
first episode.
We have this figured. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like if God actually wrote the 10 Commandments, then what the fuck, man? Why did you stop at 10? If you're God, and you know everything,
Uh-huh.
why did you make a fucking bullet list of 10 things and then leave? What the hell?
Yeah.
Right?
And no, a much bigger checklist.
If we have the picture figured out, then we should write it down. Is what I'm saying.
Well, let's rewind. Which one of those 10? Like, because I don't really know the commandments. Like, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor, thou shalt not kill, right? Thou shalt not steal.
You got 'em. That's all 10.
I got 3. 3 out of 10. To be honest,
it seems like there could have been fewer.
Those few, like, okay, yeah. Do unto others, is that one of them?
I think maybe
do unto you?
There's some.
That's just kind of part of it.
I would argue there's some redundancy here.
1,000 years later,
if you're not, like, don't kill, don't steal. That could all just be like, don't invade what Bjorn calls other people's personal sovereignty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like leave that alone, and that's just one. You could just consolidate like 5 commandments probably into one right there.
Well, literally, I mean, the thing that Bjorn just commented on, do unto others. Not, we can save this for the religion podcast, but do unto others is the thing that Jesus said, literally a millennia later, after the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
That Jesus came back and said, well, actually, just treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Like, just enough with all the other shit.
Yeah. So that's cool. I'm down with that.
Imagine how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And do that.
I think he was onto something there. So then you're saying you want to expand
that time
out.
in India.
So look, you got 10 commandments. It got funneled down to 1 with Jeez Louise over here. Right. He said, do unto others. And then you're saying you want to bring it back up as a crescendo and make a million.
Christiando?
No, but it's not going to be Christian. It's universal.
All I'm saying is if we put all the pieces together, guys, right? We were obviously right on all our predictions so far.
Obviously.
We were obviously clairvoyant in the future predictions that we've made to this point. This is obviously why we're so filthy rich on Predict It, and obviously why we have so many followers.
Yeah, well, I haven't lost anything.
Right. So all I'm saying is we should put all this knowledge to work in one central future almanac.
All right. So you ready?
Yeah.
Future almanac. I like that word, that phrase. That's really good. Rule number 1, there is no future almanac. Rule number 2, there is a future almanac. Rule number 3, if you can reconcile rule number 1 and rule number 2, then you can understand the future almanac. And then rule number 4 is where it starts.
Okay, here's how it goes. Here's how it goes. Almost a month goes by, and the troops isolated and the nuclear weapons that are in Turkey become further and further isolated and surrounded. The Russians patrolling between the Syrians and the Turks actually begin surrounding the U.S. and its nuke holdings and the airmen and the other folks at the air base there. We try to make a air or a night departure to test the defenses and see if we can get through or what's going to happen. And some shit's shot down from some side. Who knows where? Now we have to go in. We have to.
Who are we? Like the three of us?
States. No, no, the United States.
I really don't want to.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I didn't do that. It's not my life plan. I'll fight for like Camino Island to be a wild place again and have bears and deer roam wild. But that's like one of the things that I'll fight for.
Are they hiring for that?
Yeah. Let's start a militia.
Or recruiting or whatever.
Yeah. I am recruiting for that. Yeah.
Oh shit. You realize that could turn this podcast into a whole different thing. We gotta be careful with that.
True. Okay. Well, let's wait for the first few that sign up and then see where their head's at.
If they're level-headed people.
Yeah, we can keep rolling with that.
Should be cool. Yeah, okay, I think we're going to be all right.
The Commander Defense Fund. But, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
go. Well, I got derailed by Camino. But the idea being in this future almanac-y sort of predictiveness, what the United States is going to be confronted then is going to be against going potentially against Russian troops who are now in Syria. If it's thought that they're potentially the people that shot down one of our airlifts out, whatnot, it's going to be us and Russia. And now the scope of the theater is now global, instantaneously. Russia goes to the Baltic. Sweden, interestingly enough, decided that because the Russian threat is so imminent in their
we talked about this last week. They put all the Navy under.
We covered that shit?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I need to be reminded sometime.
Well, they put it under
they're going underground. Because they know the Russians are off their rockers, proverbially. They have one too many of the Matryoshka dolls stacked in their personality.
Is a Matryoshka doll the Russian doll that has a doll inside of it with a doll inside?
I think it's called,
okay.
Yeah.
I
might be getting
Russian doll. So what about this though? Because it seems to me that it's almost like there's not really any alternative than that Erdogan.
It's fucking
Erdogan.
Matryoshka, dog. You got that shit right.
Bingo.
Matryoshka.
Nice work.
Damn.
Matryoshka dog. So Erdogan says to Trump, I'm coming over the border, whether you got people there or not. Yeah. I advise you get your people out of there. Apparently. And Trump's like, all right, we're going to get our people out of there then. And then now they're talking about it like his acting Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, was on Fox News Sunday talking about, like, well, they were going to come either way, so we had to get out of harm's... Like 50 soldiers, you can't go to war with 50 soldiers. Like, well...
There's 1,000, I thought.
Well, regardless, 50 or 1,000, go to war. Wait, so you're saying basically Turkey threatened to go to war with us, and we didn't have a big enough force in place to be able to truly back it up, so you just backed out, and now we're just working on things from the basis of we just got punked super hard, and every decision from here on is just accepting that as if it's just totally okay. Now, I'm not necessarily challenging that. In a weird way, I almost respect that because it's the least violent way to go about things. But if you talk about geopolitical chess, like, I don't know that that's not a premeditated move, but coordinated between Putin, Assad, Erdogan.
Oh yeah,
and
Putin got in his ear and said, "Call him."
So here's the only other
phone, just Trump,
and just tell him. And here's the kicker though, is if it's that simple. Okay, I forgot what I was gonna say there.
But Putin telling Erdogan to call or what?
Yeah, well, and just like, and if we, I was just basically going to make the observation, sorry, that if it had been Obama that had been in charge when a foreign ally had said, get your fucking troops out of the way or we're fucking taking them out too. And he said, okay, and he moved out. The entire corporate world, media world, Republican world, and most Democrats would be saying he was the weakest, most pathetic, feckless leader, they'd say, and they'd be like...
I mean, how come we haven't... I mean, I feel like some people have said that. Yeah, it is.
There has been a lot of criticism of Trump for it, but if it had been Obama, I think it would have been like...
We don't like to call him weak for some reason. And I think that's the terminology set because he speaks so much to tremendous strength, etc.
But he gets bullied.
People are shy of calling him weak. And weakness is actually probably the greatest way to depict the man of tiny hands. Like, he's weak.
Yeah.
He's a baby in all of his mannerisms. He reminds me a lot of my commercial real estate landlord. Who I just had a great interaction with today, and he basically left the room like the United States out of Turkey.
You bumped him?
I broke his ass.
Nice. Good job. You should be on a boat again.
Hey, man. Don't come to a meeting with me not being prepared, bro. Like,
when he left, were you like, bye, Turkey?
I called him a dick bag. I said, actually, well, no. He'd forgotten his umbrella as he stormed out of my office. And I noticed it just as I was like grabbing it and leaving the office as well. So I grabbed his umbrella and I said, hey, dick bag. And he turned to that calling. And I walked up and was like, "You forgot your umbrella." And he's like, "Yeah."
Oh my gosh, that's out of a movie. That's really good.
Dude,
It
I
was
feel
really
like
great.
we
yeah.
have to know so much more about that story.
Parking lot fucking funk, bro.
From now on, you got to wear
Parking
a GoPro.
lot funk. Hell yeah.
You have to wear a lapel
Hey, I'm gonna.
camera from now
Since
on.
we're on video,
Okay.
I can't unacknowledge this thing. So before, when we were not on video, I could silently escape to the restroom. Now
Oh yeah.
we're on video. I have to walk away from the camera.
You need to get a
like
large
the
mouthed plastic
There's
bottle
no way.
receptacle.
Yeah,
to
there's
seat
yeah.
under.
There's my bladder is not big enough to not do that for an hour and a half. It just doesn't work.
No?
Okay,
Um,
well, that's probably
Merry,
So I'm
Merry
just-
Go
stop
Twinkle
it.
I'm just
Grounds
gonna throw.
too.
I'm just gonna throw something out into the ether. You guys can ignore it if you want. I'm just gonna throw a question out there. If you're still talking about it when I come back, no, great. But if not, no big deal. Okay. In the year 2024, on this date, who is the most famous Nikki in America out of these three names? Nikki Haley, Nikki Glazer, Nicki Minaj. Go.
Okay, I don't know who Glazer is, but I know
So she's
I'm
not
familiar
gonna
with
be.
Nicki Minaj. I don't think she'll be the most famous Nicki in 2024. Well, now, yeah, how we would even judge the fame when they're in.
Hey,
Again, I don't know who Nikki Glazer is, but Nikki Haley's in politics. Nicki Minaj is in rap music.
Nikki's
so yeah,
just
I don't
short
think I
for
can
like
calculate
Nicholas and Nikolaya, right?
And Nicole.
So, Nicole. And thank you. So here's what I think. Saint Nicky is probably the most famous one in 2024.
Like Santa Claus.
Saint, yeah.
Always
Everybody
working with
knows
that guy.
Saint
He kills it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Home Alone
How
is
come
still
there's not a
favorite.
new rapper named Saint Nicky?
There probably
whose
is.
theme is Christmas oriented.
There probably is, and if not, you should make him.
I feel like we should make him.
Well, I'm down. I think that would be a powerful way to comment. We did have Once Upon a Time a War on Christmas album, so to come back as Christmas itself would be quite a surprise.
Yeah, I remember that. And now we could veil it under building a supervillain character around Saint Nicky.
Well, and then there was
And
Adam
then-
Sandler had Little Nicky, which was like a Satan kind of vibe. So you could borrow from there. But I think we gotta just real quickly going back to the doomsday scenarios.
Yeah.
What you have here is getting punked, right? And again, like maybe that's for the best. I don't know, but I'm just saying you got a guy, Putin, who plays the long game, right? Because you got to remember these heads of state who stay in for basically as long as they want, as opposed to 1 or 2 4-year terms. They play a different scale of time. You know what I mean? Furthermore, this guy's an ex-KGB like psychoanalyst in a way. Like he knows the profile of Trump. He knows what kind of, like
Particularly what kind of idiot he is.
yeah, and what kind of actions and reactions he's going to do in the first place, let alone what he's manipulating in him. And then he's got this kind of motley crew of people that he can bring into his plots and plans because, whether it's MBS or Erdogan or Erdogan, I guess that's what they say. Sorry, I keep forgetting to pronounce it that way. Erdogan, Assad, Kim Jong-un, like his collection of rogue dudes collectively is pretty scary, right? Yeah. And then he's undermining the concept of NATO because Turkey being a NATO member and this whole thing, right? So now, like, basically the alliance that would counter this alliance that he's slowly in shadow forming is, you know what I mean, as slowly and quietly as he's putting this other thing together, he's taking this other one apart. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just happening in front of our eyes. And if you have what it takes to plan and execute that, what would you be, fuck who's the most famous Nikki in 2024, what is the geopolitical clock that's already ticking gonna say? What kind of moves, Crimea, what kind of stuff like that is gonna have happened where land grabs and just like shocking maneuvers have taken place.
Yeah. I don't see the way that this board of chess is playing doing anything but causing an outright confrontation. There's too many sides that are eager for it, and too many players with too many variable personality disorders. There's too much psychopathy at the top.
Uh-huh.
And there have been times when kingdoms and empires and states were not ruled by psychopaths only. Many countries enjoy leadership that's not totally psychopathic.
Right.
But many countries have such a streamlined executive choice set that if you get an executive up there who is psychopathic, they can change the trajectory and make shots and calls on how wars function, like this country, with executive orders cast down in the thousands, tens of thousands of executive orders, if I'm not mistaken. Like the way we've built the mechanism empowers the people of craziness further, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like we've been complacent in allowing even the Western democracies to get filtered into a manner where we can allow the sort of nationalism to still parade. We live in a world where the internet was supposed to provide platforms for people to really be uniting around globalist ideas and thoughts, and yet we're getting sucked further and further into the extremes of nationalism and ethnic hatreds and shit like that. It's like not what the future should be playing for right now. The future's like heels in the dirt, not trying to go there, kind of like societies like that, I think. And the powers that be really are like that. And unfortunately, it's either going to go to cataclysm or it's going to go to them getting jerked forward and actually starting to water ski into the future. Like that holding back finally brings you to the surface and we can cut through the bullshit and get to what our generation, I think, sees as a world we want to live in and want our following generations to know. And that's one with equity and equality and care for the environment and realization of real democratic processes.
So I mean,
real
I think
democracy.
Maybe tying that with the creating that framework for the future kind of energy, what you could probably say safely is that there are forces, and I believe Putin is definitely a key player in those equations, that have a big game of slowly, like I was saying, building an alliance, taking apart other alliances, taking over land, doing different things. And it's not because they're trying to create a utopia. You know what I mean? It's because at the end of it, it's just them getting what they want and having free reign, and it doesn't really matter. Everyone else is a pawn in the game, right? Like whether you're enslaved or whether you're this or that is irrelevant to them because they're going to have whatever they want. So you got to create the counter future, right? Like so it's just interesting because if you think about it, like you've got this dark force that's trying to bring about that kind of just post-peace world of just cruel nationalist like greed. Then you've got like the U.S. political system, which just isn't really built to work on the same speed and time. You know what I mean? Like it just really isn't. Like it can't really adequately even deal with something like climate change. You know what I mean? Like a crisis of decades is still a little too fast for the computer of U.S. government. You know what I'm saying? And that is one of the nimble benefits of those like tyrannies is that they with that autocracy they can just say this is what we're gonna do, whatever it might be. So anyway, my point is like you've got the bad force, then you've got like what would be the force for good theoretically, or it'd be fun to think it was, but it's not really capable of seeing the forest for the trees, and it's not nimble enough to move on it, and it's currently preoccupied with. Well, yeah, and Western like current Western nations as an alliance or as the United States itself, regardless. Like it's just not a system that can adequately defend against it, and it's also preoccupied. So then you got just random people like ourselves, which is how movements, get started anyway, is by random people. And so what you're proposing, Mishak, is like creating that guideline, that like, way to get there. And so I'm just saying it has to factor in the malevolent actors. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to not only chart like what would be the right world that we want to live in, because that's how you recruit people to it, but you also have to be pretty realistic and maybe stark about what you're up against. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like
like we've talked about it before, that you have to build a system that also factors in the antibodies for the diseases we know that are out there, right? So like, we've talked about the desert island thing, or the whatever, the starting over concept a lot of times, the Venus Project, and several other examples have come up on the show just about people trying to like, and for what it's worth, all of studying government in high school is a study of a bunch of people who tried to come up with basically a desert island concept in various ways. And the bottom line is that like you have to factor in both the domestic needs of your people and the people who are on the same page and trying the same way as you to think about the world, and the people who think of themselves as your enemy, and who are thinking of themselves as antagonistic to your plans. You have to factor that in. And so like one of the things that came to mind when you were describing that that sort of worldview of Russia as the Russian government, you could easily say all the exact same things about the American government, that we're just out for our
except for that we're not as clever, really.
Well, not to us anymore, because our current sitting president our current sitting president looks like the absolute puppet to the president.
This century, the 21st. I just think that the United States has been in denial about the present, let alone the future. It's like just pretending as if it's like the 80s forever, and it's not at all.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But it's difficult to predict.
Though, like, go ahead, bro.
It's just hard to see a future where there won't be those who have attained a little power or money or wealth, however it is used and viewed in this world, not seeking more of it. The power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely is true every time. Mm-hmm. You can have great people. Our wonderful state of Washington had a lady, Patty Murray, who ran in the 90s as the soccer mom, and she promised to only go for one term to the Senate. She's been there since. Yeah. She's one of the leading Democrats. And guess what? She voted a year or two ago against allowing generic prescriptions to be purchased by people instead of paying the full pharmaceutical bill for the high-cost prescription drugs. She voted against it, allowing Canadian cheap drugs to be legal. Right. And guess how much she made that year from Big Pharma? Like about $200,000.
Right.
It's like this.
And you know what's crazy is that, did she make that personally, or did it go to her campaign? It probably went to her campaign, right? But they can share their campaign money and pass it around. So me having a big bunch of money in my campaign means I can schmooze with you guys and go, hey, let me help you do a fundraiser, or this or that. So now, even though I'm not necessarily getting my own personal wealth from it, I'm getting the clout within the Senate to dig in. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy, because
and beyond the Senate, I mean, even in the private sector.
So, but that's like long term, right?
Absolutely. You keep catering to big patrons like your local large corporations whenever they throw a fundraiser or you schmooze with them. The next thing you know, you've retired to a great board position. So you've left the public sector and now you got, $1 million income with one meeting a month.
Right. Which sounds awesome. I would love that job.
and I mean, you can't. I'm not. But the Biden's great. I love Joe. Sure, Uncle Joe, love the dude. But he's part of that crazy political elite fabric, and his son Hunter getting to sit on the fucking board of Ukrainian Petroleum Company. Like, yeah, it shouldn't be a means to change the way an election plays out, but it isn't cool. There's nothing that smells cool about the way that all shit went down. So, I'm not trying to give any credence to fucking anything Trump says.
Here, by the way, we don't spend enough time sometimes on beating the shit out of the guys that we kind of imply to support. But I just want to say here on that fact. Like, one of the things that's driven me crazy about the last 2 or 3 elections of feeling in spirit in line with the Democratic Party is that I use the term stepping on their dicks. They just can't get out of their way. They just fucking can't. They can't stop putting people like Joe Biden in a position knowing that there are decades of obvious, at least questionable decisions, if not obvious corruption.
Yeah.
In place. Why is he your guy then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree.
You can't not know this. There's no way you don't know this.
Therein lies the argument more or less for Bernie, True. I mean, I think that's where, but I find it quite interesting actually, because the example of Patty Murray, you take an outsider who goes into the system, into the Senate, which is where Joe Biden came from, and soon enough, little things change, right? You can stay longer than a term, maybe. Who knows why, but and it's hard to blame her specifically for it, because so many so many candidates said that they weren't even going to run for X office, and then the next day all of a sudden announced their candidacy and shit, and it's all cute, but I think it is a good example with Patty Murray in the sense that so she slowly but surely ends up, like you said, voting against something that it's kind of well, that just isn't for the best interest of the people, what you've just done there. And so that, there's got to be some explanation. Joe Biden, similarly, he was not necessarily wealthy, and he comes from a lot of tragedy and shit. He's had a lot of this and this and that. And they said he was they called it the poorest, but I think it would probably be more appropriate to say least wealthy person in the Senate when he left, and became vice president, supposedly. But still, least wealthy person in the Senate, or they call poorest, I'm pretty sure means a fat house somewhere. You know what I mean? Because it sounds like he had a lake or something right there, and who knows? Yeah. Anyway, if his son is getting $50,000 a month to sit on a board somewhere, whether it's legal or not, it's another example of how once you get in the system, they find ways to just kind of, hey, let me hold the door open for you. It's just like Russian spying, exactly. Really. It's the same thing. It's oh, well, now that I held the door open for you, you've got the stain of, I did that. You know what I'm saying? Everything's a liability, everything's bribable and blackmail. And so all these people just get manipulated into just being exactly what they're supposed to be. And then you got someone like Bernie Sanders, and it's just cool because he's been around for a very long time. And he's a millionaire, but he's a millionaire because he played the game in the sense of writing books, right? That's where he got his wealth. So he didn't try to get in on the lobbying fest, it sounds like, or it seems like, but he did still find a way to get what was necessary to stay in the club. You know what I mean?
By the way,
it's kind of a G move. 78 or 79, I believe.
Yeah. So
78.
When I was 19, one of my first employers gave me a little spreadsheet exercise to look at compound interest and look at how long it would take me to become a millionaire if I literally just saved 10% of my income and got 10% raises for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's so simple. I can appreciate that Bernie is now a quote-unquote wealthy man, but at 78, to be a quote-unquote millionaire is really not that big a deal, especially if he's had a really substantial government job for fucking 40 years.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, like, so for people to call it out like he's somehow elite is kind of obscene. That's ridiculous.
Right, like if he'd have just been holding down the jobs he'd had and putting some away in his 401k, he would be
just remotely frugal at 78.
Yeah, I mean, well, he might not be just like a one millionaire. I'm not sure, but regardless,
I'm just saying. But like, but one thing I think to call out about the Joe Biden comparison, though, right? So if any one of us took a public office and we got a good salary out of it, and then there's natural perks, some of which we could control, some of which we couldn't avoid if we tried. It's just the reality of having some clout or whatever. People are going to open doors for you, etc. However, it's one thing to say, okay, Biden, you're the least wealthy person in the Senate because your net worth calculates to less than other people's net worth, right? But to your point, Rob, the fundamental difference between those people's lives is net zero. It's almost nothing, right? The fundamental difference between their security, their children's outcomes, their children's opportunities, et cetera, is almost nothing between those people, right? But when you factor in the story specifically, the corruption story specifically of Joe Biden and his son, that is problematic on so many.
Well, you know, I mean, I just think terminology might be key, though, because I'm not sure if we still have you, Mishak. Are you there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing it.
Yep, I lost you for a second. I got you now.
Because corruption to me is like definitely what is going on in this country, really, really blatantly, where you're taking somebody who's like already the president of a company or this industry, and then you're putting him in charge of the agency that regulates that, and he's doing everything his private company would have wanted that agency to do, and then they're all walking away cashing checks. To me, that's like corruption. I don't know that the Biden thing is corruption as much as the sliminess of the way elitism works. You know what I mean? And it's not an excuse for it at all.
Perception is reality, though. Right? So both of those things are true. Like, on one hand, years in American politics and in government positions, right? And your family, if they want to be in politics in any way, is going to have a hard time avoiding at least the accusations of nepotism, right? But that's not what's happening here. What's happening here with the Joe Biden story and his son is not, for example, what's being accused of someone like Chelsea Clinton, right? There are lots of children of politicians in the public eye who are not being accused of the kinds of things that Joe Biden's son is being accused of.
Right.
And those are the kinds of things that are only possible if someone's opening doors for him in advance.
Well, the trick is, it's so funny that Trump even has the thought to going after somebody's kids.
Yeah.
When his children
are actively doing
it. That's why
easily benefiting from this shit left and right.
That's why he's doing it. That's the strategy. So he's just learning from whatever I do. I just need to find somebody else who's already doing that and accuse him of it publicly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all he's doing. But the fact that the Democrats can't find someone who doesn't already have a child as corrupt as Don Jr.
But they can.
That's
the false narrative, because
like,
they can.
Happening?
They can. There's 12 candidates that were on the debate stage yesterday. Like, Joe Biden is by no means the person.
But to your point, Bernie is that guy at least, right?
Oh yeah, and Bernie is the dude.
Bernie
was on fire last night too.
And there's plenty of people.
He was. He was on fire last night.
But that's what's frustrating about why Joe Biden is still in the race. Joe Biden's still in the race because Tide still sells, because Colgate still sells. Joe Biden is a brand name that the Democrats care about. That's all. Absolutely. That's the only reason he's still there.
To shout out Bernie though for a second, because I would say two observations I had from his performance last night, and one might have been overdue. I should have noticed this a little while ago. But he's dialed in his politician's game. He explains things simply. He knows. He doesn't dodge questions. He answers questions directly. He says things in a way that makes it seem honest, and it's just concise and clear, and it's the method of somebody who knows what he's doing and has honed the craft. And I mean, I've always agreed with him, but I feel like he's become a better politician, and that's just my observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other one though is just more of a move he pulled. There were two. There's another move I want to mention, but this is Bernie's. It was smooth too. Like 2/3 of the way through the debate, somehow it gets into like health and healthcare, and he says, "And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for all the well wishes, the prayers, the thoughts, the calls, the camaraderie. You know, everyone on this stage, like you guys have been awesome." And he gives them like the most sincere props. And the next shot is everyone on the fucking stage looking at him and applauding him. And he's just standing there, the man, getting all the praise from everybody. Like no matter what they're saying about him, no matter how ugly it's getting, suddenly he's showing he commands the respect of everybody on the stage. It was so fucking gangster and presidential. Like I just was like, that is some shit. That's true. That's not a mistake. Yeah. And then Tulsi Gabbard, I just had to call this out because it was her strategy. She tried multiple times to flip answering questions. So what they do is they ask her a question, and she'd filibuster for almost her entire time. So they'd be like, Tulsi, what do you think about the color yellow? And she'd be like, well, green is a great color in some people's minds, and red's important.
No, it's more like reason. I like math.
Yeah, well, maybe so. But she'd say something that really didn't effectively address the question she was asked. And then right at the end, when her time was running out, she'd like, but I'd really like to take this opportunity to ask Meshach, what do you think about Nintendo 64? You know, like just completely unrelated, point at you and expect that now all of a sudden Meshach's on the spot because another debater has just nominated herself to be the moderator, and she's now asking the questions. So she got away with it once. She asked like Elizabeth Warren a question, and Elizabeth, who I thought was kind of dodging questions a little bit, which was annoying to me. But she dealt with it one way or another. But then they were up at a hard break. It was like 6:59 or whatever p.m. and it was like they were gonna go to commercials. They only do it like once an hour, and Tulsi tried to do it again, and they were like, nope, sorry, and we're going to break.
Yeah. Today,
Tulsi Gabbard had a Facebook, Instagram ad saying CNN cuts off Tulsi to protect Elizabeth. And I just thought that was so funny and cheap. I was like, no, you tried to play moderator at like 30 seconds before they're going into a hard break. And then when you get just shut down for your cheap little fucking tactic, you're crying about it and trying to claim it's like the man's against you. But she is a Russian plant.
That ad buy might be a Russian plant because that ad buy is a math play. It's the number of voters total is one group. The number of people who watched that debate and saw that moment is another group.
Yeah.
The number of people she could reach with this ad and reframe and spin this story before they hear about it.
I agree.
Is this other group. It's just it's a calculation. Now let's spend some money.
Sure. One of the things, and to talk about the debate and the idea of like revolution and reform and changing the world and stuff like that, which we were addressing, our almanac of the future. I think it was Pete Buttigieg who was called out about wanting to add more justices to the Supreme Court.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think that's his idea.
Or it's being talked about and he likes it.
I think you're right.
And he's like, oh yeah, I'm really interested in that. You know, it'd have opportunities to prevent one president from having so much sway, and having a larger spread of people over time allows them to come in and out over a longer set of presidencies, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, there's other people talking about term limits, etc., for justices. There's, all sorts of ideas that, and he says, smarter people than me are talking about. Great. Now we can talk about changing shit. I thought 9 justices on the Supreme Court was solid as a rock.
No.
Never up for debate.
Right.
Like, no. I thought that shit was in the box. But, okay, so we can change that. We're looking for more balance spread out over time. How about we create the machinery to allow any other party to come into fucking power? How about we have, a secession of this just bipartisanship that's going on? How about we move towards a purer forms of democracy where every group of 100 in a certain geography, there could be 2 per building some places, has to elect 1 person to go to the local high school and they vote on this. And like, how come we can't get closer to better federal actual mergers with local democracy?
Do you think there's an element of because right now we got like this kind of fractured setup where like you could be in the city council, but that's not in any way connected. It doesn't relate to like a federal or even really a state, or a county perspective. So like the fact that you kind of have to choose whether you're going to be local or regional or broader or federal, you know what I mean? Like that those things are so broken up. Do you feel like it would be better to have those things be more integrated and like maybe have bigger city councils that are actually representatives like of buildings or I don't know, like or some hybrid or
tighter neighborhood council sets, 2 city council sets. And if you don't want to play, you don't want to play. Not everybody has to get involved in the hyper local shit. But if you're super concerned about the way the construction's going down on Market Street or the aftermath of the big fire we had here 2 weeks ago, like you want to get involved. You want to be on the hyper local level. And there's plenty of people who would be effective at it, making change there that would probably be just as effective or more effective at the federal level than these money grabbing fucking career bandits, these actors, they're all just actors. And it's so cold. Like, unfortunately, even Bernie's got a little makeup on and has refined his like habits over the years. I think maybe that might lead for some success to him. Right now is to scramble for a few points before you go into Iowa shit. And I'd like him to come in strong and leave strong from that place. I think that's a possibility.
Look, he got the endorsements of the squad, except Ayanna Pressley, right? You know that.
I don't know if that's great for him there.
There maybe not. I don't know, but he's got now. He's
got to win Rust Belt. That's the one thing Klobuchar can do.
Well, so they say. But what he's also got, he would argue he can win it too. Michael Moore, I think, is the kind of dude that you could imagine kind of being out there repping for him. But what they say about the squad endorsement is that their influence with young people is so strong that for Bernie, it's like it's really solidifying that young people contingency, supposedly. So maybe that would matter in some of those places where young people might be saying, hey, I wouldn't think the primary was my thing, but like we got to do, like who knows? Maybe this is actually going to translate. It's hard to say.
So let's get to future almanacking out an AOC 24.
Oh, really? You think so?
Is she old enough?
She has to be 35 by then.
She's 28, right?
She'll be old enough in 2024.
So
to be a president, you have to be 35. She
might be 34 then. So she's 2028.
Oh, wow, she's not even.
So it might be a ways out. But I like where you're going with the court though, and then basically the other mechanics of it, because just like taking a step back, it's like, all right, so they say supposedly there was an argument about how to create representation, and the Senate was going to be an equal representation for every state, and the House was going to be where populations in states, came into play. A bigger state would have more representatives in the House. So there was already at the time an understanding of some of those nuances and a way to try to deal with them. It's all just very outdated. So like what you're saying, how do you update every part of it? Like, do you create a whole nother chamber in the Congress?
So okay,
to get rid of
so
one?
I was thinking about this
you
one.
know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No.
no, but what if you like? What if there's a? What if all of the sub branches of government were like kind of qualifying rounds, right? So let's assume for a second that like, if you're vice president, you're obviously qualified to be president because you're next in line. If you are a sitting member of Congress in some way, then you qualify to run for president. Let's assume that. And if you're a governor, you are qualified to run for president. But if you were just some business dude who's never held any public office in any way whatsoever, you have to qualify in some like rounds of service to public office, right? So at a low level, to your point, Bjorn, that people get involved in local politics, what if it was incentivized with taxes, right? So let's say, just hypothetically speaking, you go and run for city council and you get voted onto city council. Now you don't pay any local taxes because you're on city council. You get, like your normal kind of thing, but now your incentive of being on city council is you don't pay any local taxes, but now you're involved in deciding how the taxes are spent locally. As you go up,
I believe
you
it's
go
a
into
paid position. Yeah.
Well, right, but like as you go up, we start flipping so that eventually it's a career move, right? You're in House or Congress or whatever. These are career positions, but it's only at a federal level that this starts being career plays, because we expect you to go from Congress in some way to running for president at some point. We expect you to be in that mix in some way, like the general public. And if you're in local politics, we expect you to be doing it for the incentives, right? Because we expect our local politics to manage those incentives and to incentivize the people that we want locally, right?
Yeah.
But you can't run for president unless you've accrued some kind of collection of credibility through governance in some other levels. In other words, if you've already held a seat in Congress in some way, then you're automatically kind of qualified. But maybe being a mayor of some local district doesn't automatically qualify you, and now you can't just run for president. What if it's not just some like age requirement and signing up for a bill, but like you have to actually serve the government in some way before you can even qualify for running for president?
I do like the fact that that's not one of the caveats, because it allows an outsider to come in. So I like that.
Why is that really valuable? Like I get it theoretically, but what does it actually value us? Because right now it's got value.
It'd be valuable.
The downside is Donald Trump.
If you felt, if there was a feeling in the country that the country's basically being held hostage by a group that was, and especially you have to think about the founding of this country basically being held hostage by a foreign power of far greater wealth. For instance, what if the United Kingdom just decided to buy off everybody in the Senate, everybody in the House, and the president, and the Supreme Court, and the country is now like, oh shit, basically we're back under the United Kingdom again. Like, this is bad. They're taxing us for tea again. Like, damn it.
But it's good tea.
It's really good tea.
The capacity for a brand new individual to be elected to the highest position, or even any of the local positions, but be from outside of that framework and brought in to change it back to a non-corrupt status, is one of those modes of protection that was built against, especially foreign influence and tyranny, or potentially corporate types of tyranny.
What do you think about this?
But isn't that just a back door that's built into our software that allows for bugs? Like, that's how I hear it.
It's kind of Murphy's Law type shit.
Yeah, exactly. We've created a loophole that will sink the ship.
Yeah.
We've created the specific place,
and that's around corruption. Yeah,
we're all gonna die.
So let's just wipe the tablecloth clear of all the plates and the dishes. Let's reset the table, and we're gonna say,
damn it, there's so many metaphors.
We're gonna say we probably want to still have a Congress and or like a legislative, an administrative, and a judicial branch, presumably that are separated. But that's not for granted. We can talk about that. But What about this? What if somehow you built in these redundancies to the extent that you had multiple phantom administrative branches that were each working as if they were the sole one in charge, and then you had some sort of mechanism or process. What about this? Well, for very quick decisions, we're going to have to look at that separately. But for broader stuff, you have like let's say a left coalition administrative branch that's working as if they're in charge, a right, and maybe a middle, and they all submit what they've come up with as their policy proposals and everything else to some sort of legislative body to be ratified. And then once it's ratified, it actually goes to a whole nother type of executive branch that actually delivers it, or it gets assigned randomly to one of the ones and they have to execute it in good faith, even if it wasn't the one that they did, or some sort of way to constantly have multiple ideas on the table, tie everybody into the stakes regardless, and force people's like loyalty to the country over their own ways of wanting to do it. I don't know what it is, but I just kind of like the thought experiment of multiple groups working as if it's up to them, but ultimately it not being up to them, and I don't know what that means.
So, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, might want to
really
update that
always.
too.
Well, yeah, I think I'd love to update that, but there's something about it that creates this Trinity subdivision.
So the life, admin, the liberty, and the pursuit
of happiness. Right?
Break it down.
So now, basically recreating an entire governmental structure that is the life government, the liberty government, and the pursuit of happiness government, and they exist equally. They each have checks and balances on each other. And the liberty government is primarily concerned with the greater defense of the country, preventing us from becoming the vassal of another state. And maintaining the fact that inside of this country, everybody has their own chance at their own liberty. That they're basically the police, to put it any other way. Or they recover for the police. The life folks.
But does that mean like that we wrote Roxanne and like?
Yes, definitely. That's what it means.
Like every breath you take, and like synchronicity. Yeah, we're in that. We're in that band.
Can I just real quickly throw in there, what you're proposing makes sense, if it's what I think it is, you've got these dedicated wings working on life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. What we need is a more efficient and robust way to deal with it on the court side, because there's going to have to be judgments made, right? So what about supreme jury and supreme jury duty? And so a supreme jury is convened anytime.
Comes full circle.
No, this isn't idiocracy. This is brilliantocracy. So when these life and liberty, for example, branches run into a problem. This has nothing to do with Taco Bell. When these guys have a conflict of interest in it, and it can't both like if they're equal and they both propose something that conflicts, right? You got to settle that. You got to choose which one prevails. Mm-hmm. So that's when you convene a supreme jury, and so you take some sort of method, whether it's people qualified through their civil service who have earned the capacity to be a supreme juror, or it's just everybody, but it's fast, and you grab people out of work. Like, you get a request to report, like at school, you know what I'm saying? Like, they come to you at your job and they're just like, Bjorn, I know it's a busy day, but the country needs you to show up on your computer or whatever on Skype for a supreme jury session. You got to listen to these arguments, and then you got to submit your vote, and there's going to be like 1,200 people who are also participating, and whatever the weight, and it's just random. It's not on purpose balanced or any of that. So sometimes it goes south because you got a bad random sample, but at the end of the day, it's like 1,200 people or something like that. So, you know what I mean? So
So what happens in the Barabbas scenario where some Barabbas referencing the New Testament when Jesus is on trial against Pontius Pilate, and Barabbas was released to the Jews instead of Jesus, to catch our listeners up. In the Barabbas scenario where there's just some random on-the-fly trial that happens and not a critical mass of logical thinking citizens join in to vote, and some serial killer gets released back into the wild.
I don't think it's going to be about serial killers getting released. It's like
I feel like we covered this, Meshach, on a previous one, but some people believe the translation of Bar Abbas was really the translation of the Son of God, and the Yahshua Cristo, or whatever he was going at the time, was more equated to the King of the Jews, and that people chose the spiritual revolutionary to be released instead of the political revolutionary.
Hey,
that end, to your point, Rob, what in that scenario
Tangent.
What in that scenario I guess protects the system from just accidental faux pas of votes? I love the idea of a critical mass needed to affect these big changes.
Well, no, not necessarily critical mass. I'm saying if you had a more complex government, you hear people talk about big and small government. But let's just talk about a really big government for a second.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Bigger. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah. If people are getting paid, whatever. If we all got our money and people are taken care of and have healthcare and stuff, government being big or small, it's kind of relative, right? What is big government for a fucking country of several hundred million people? I don't know. What's the size supposed to be, right? But let's just say, going even further, big ass government, right? And you got redundant departments. You got 2 secretaries of education. You got 2 departments of education. Just in case, a backup one ready to go. Things like this. I'm not even necessarily suggesting that. I'm just saying open the table up to that kind of discussion. And that's where I'm just saying that at certain points you might call a Supreme jury as well as Supreme Court justices and Supreme Court. Anyway, Bjorn's got it.
Hold on.
How many is the ideal number though?
Yes, we need the judiciary. Yes, we need the judiciary to oversee all this, and potentially maybe even a supreme executive. But can you imagine having the choice to attend either the Liberty School system, the Life School system, or the Pursuit of Happiness school system? In the Pursuit of Happiness, we're all about making music and kicking it and in creating things and making life better, doing kind things for others, philanthropic endeavors, etc. And so and there's a lot of things. Even just going skiing is in that realm, right? Sport is part of Pursuit of Happiness. But then the Liberty folks, that's a little more martially focused, but with it, there's a strict adherence to elements of law and ethic and all of these other things that rather more regimental, but nonetheless vastly worldly thought process that goes into that stream of education. And life has the ideas of providing shelter, farming, all of the rudiments of our survival in this world cued in. Now let's talk about the highways. Can I go down the Liberty Road and for a while, or do I with steel fences everywhere and tanks driving by, or do I get to ride the Pursuit of Happiness highway, over the mountains to beautiful views and through cool tunnels?
Can I just point out two things? I grew up on Liberty Road. I spent most of my childhood literally on Liberty Road in a campground called Camp Liberty. So very key point. And 2,
thank you.
2, George Orwell kind of covered this, right? The Ministry of Love, the Ministry of Peace, the Ministry of Truth, the Ministry of Plenty, right? That there would be a structure that serves the hierarchy that ostensibly also serves all of the basic needs of the people. And that those needs would be broken up into food groups in some way.
Yeah.
And like, here's everything you need, right? And then we'll just create
than now
ministries of that.
Well, I think we're on to something. It's going to take a little time. We could probably take some, suggestions in the comments and things like that. People might have some ideas there. But I just was thinking, as we were talking about, being a little pessimistic again, back to this moment in time. If there was... Well, just thinking real quickly through like a new world war, because we've done this before, but I feel like it's changed since the last time we talked about this.
Right. Yeah.
There was a World War III today. What would the sides be? Presuming there would be two, right? And I was thinking like, okay, like we talked about earlier, Russia, Turkey, Syria, they're on the same side probably. I can't imagine North Korea is not on that side. Saudi Arabia probably joins that side. There's some switching of allegiances. And then where does China go? I mean, probably on that side too, right? Like at the end of the day.
But who do they hate more?
They might try to be neutral.
South Korea or North Korea?
China could try to be neutral, but if it was a world war, I'm just saying it's like a requisite that they're involved, which is arbitrary. But if they are involved, like, okay, putting them aside for a second, you got the United States. Now, very few countries are going to see us as a very trustworthy ally, but some people are going to give us the benefit of the doubt. You got the United Kingdom, which is, kind of falling out with its neighbors. And then you got like Europe, really the best all these countries in like Australia and Canada and South Africa can do is try to reestablish like an alliance. But like, honestly, we're outnumbered at that point, right? Like if the United States was against all those other countries alone without the allies, would it win?
Yeah, it would.
But wouldn't we have to assume?
Yeah, we would. Yeah.
Yes, and wouldn't we have to assume at this point, when you take the United States out of the equation temporarily, and you take combinations of nation states like Ukraine and Russia, and the United States has to pick one in all of those conflicts, if the whole world is being divided in two, then each of those conflicts needs to be subdivided as well. Well, the United States is still ending up with all of the bullies on our team. That's still how it works.
I think
like China versus North Korea, we're going to end up with China. Russia versus Ukraine, we're going to end up with Russia.
Yeah,
China
China and North Korea for sure. Yeah, they're pals.
That's not. Yeah.
No. Check it out though.
Right. But like, you get my point. Like, we're going to end up with the heavy hitters on our side in almost every
I'm saying the American opposite, but I hear what you're saying.
We've
you think
just
so?
hit,
really?
Yeah.
We've just hit the point of no. There's no question that all of Europe will probably ride with us severely. Like, and albeit they don't put a ton into their military dollars as much as we do. They don't command a global navy like we do. The UK kind of does. France kind of does. But despite that, they're protecting their territorial waters for the most part. And they don't have large projection air forces because they don't have carriers. And they don't have, like the United States, deals with all of these other countries where we have air bases like we do in Turkey. And we can fucking shuttle a couple extra stealths over there and then bomb everybody in the fucking region tomorrow. Like, we just got those deals in place in so many parts of the world that we can fuck you up everywhere. And our aircraft carriers will basically be coming around the corner in a couple days anyways. We'll fuck you up. There's really nobody that can put as much pressure to bear on the whole world anywhere near as close as we can. And we would mop up and secure the edges really quick and isolate any particular enemies by chopping off every other weaker part of the world that couldn't fuck with us at all, and then isolating the people that really want to stand strong on their shit. And that would put a strip of Central Asia, and whoever want,
So in that scenario,
I don't
that's
think
what I want to know is finish that thought, Bjorn. Who are the other players in that scenario when you squeeze the world down to a few players? Right.
Yeah.
Who are the other players?
Who are the other players? I think we've listed them. You've got Iran, the new Afghanistan under the Taliban, Pakistan potentially.
Nouveau.
Potentially China and North Korea reaching that far. Russia, obviously. You've got this swath, potentially Turkey, Syria. So that swath of the world would be where the fighters would be coming, and we'd be bringing the fight to them. They wouldn't be coming to us. Nobody has global projection in that sense like we do at all. The Russians would attempt it. They'd fight a submarine war with us. So right now, and this was kind of the main point I was actually going to try to make, I'm wishing Rob was here to hear this. I think the idea of the American projection into the next century has really changed in a way that it wouldn't have 20 years ago when they wrote the project for the new American century and shot down the towers in the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. The new mode is one where drone warfare is kind of the tip of the iceberg. The Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia or Iranian attacks, whoever they came from, are kind of the tip of the iceberg for the way that the new wars are going to be fought. And if drone missile capacity is in so many hands and is an easily replicatable type of technology, open source, we can all fucking build our own drone bomber, Now we got a warfare style that the conventional armies and the weapons that we built and mastered last century are no longer applicable for. So it doesn't really matter as much the fact that we can project as much power on the sea. Inland areas will be ruled by communities who have access to drones and can fuck up any army potential that comes after it and shoot things out of the sky. I mean, the new version of warfare, I guess is what I'm getting at, is one in which the current nation states who've invested so much into current modern warfare are going to be totally off guard for. And that's why the desire for any potential global conflict to actually happen this century benefits those nation states to happen sooner than later. If it happens in the next decade, they might be able to fight it. But after that...
When you say those nation states, is the United States one of them?
Absolutely.
So be careful what you wish for, not that you're wishing for it.
Sooner...
I know. But sooner, what if it happened tomorrow? You think we have a commander-in-chief who's ready to fucking play that game and do all those sophisticated fucking things you're talking about?
The only thing we can hope is that he decides to get really brave.
Not good.
No, let's let him go start World War III, get really brave, get in a helicopter, go out there and get shot down.
He's not going to do that.
I know.
What he's going to do is call Hitler-esque shots. So what did Hitler do? He didn't acknowledge reality on the ground, and he made grandiose, ridiculous military strategic blunders, right? Yeah. Like that's what he did. And that's the type of shit Trump would do. So right now, the dude we have holding the controller is not the guy. So it's like we hope that this passes before something... You know what I mean? Like
that is
I know what you mean.
That is the most beautiful understatement ever of you saying the guy we have holding a controller is not the guy.
It's not him. I'm promising it's not the one we want.
No, it's not.
This is not the last stage.
I feel a little weird because it's like I almost feel like I'm coming across like pro-war or like super like militaristic, which is not my intent, but it's just more like I'm just, we talk a lot about what's the Archduke moment, to set off the next World War, and I've just increasingly felt like if it's at all either something that's happened already or something that's about to happen, and there's a lot of stuff happening. They have Kim Jong-un went off on a white horse into the snowy mountains, and whenever he does that, something big happens, because they like to bring that mythology into stuff, because it's where his grandfather was born. So they're saying that North Korea is about to do something. Now, if North Korea is saying, hey, look, the United States is in chaos politically, in terms of militaristically, they've shown complete just get punked and bitch slapped, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? We got the people who have our back are manipulating the United States. At the end of the day, China, is more or less okay with them doing what they got to do to survive.
Yeah.
So are they going to start testing nukes again?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then further humiliating not only just Trump, the mascot, but the United States, the team. You know what I mean? So I just
why
feel
not
like
just shoot one and get it over with? I feel like that's what they all really want. That's what he wants, anyways.
to launch one or to shoot it down.
Yeah, no, shoot one at us. I mean, that was his big party ceremony. Was showed the view of San Francisco. Showed the launch of a giant ICBM from North Korea,
female rock
traveling through space.
To a video of that. He had a female rock band perform a video of that or something. It's awesome.
That's right. Yeah. And everybody's in this big stadium watching the big screen of the rocket re-enter Earth orbit and come down, and it's pointed at California, and it gets closer, and you see the bay, and it just comes fucking right down into the financial district in San Francisco. And the whole screen turns white, and it's flames. And is it bones and skulls too? Does it get that cheesy?
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, that sounds like their style. It's pretty cold.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know, man. It's a wild world.
Okay, so what is the point? The three of us all live on the West Coast. Wild West world. Well done.
Paradise on Earth. Literally, paradise on Earth.
The three of us live on the West Coast. What is the news report that comes across your screen that makes you say, okay, chime's up?
It already happened in Hawaii, remember?
Rob, you've hinted at you've hinted at it many times, Rob, about going to Canada. But I'm curious, in all honesty, this kind of when I've lived all over the country, and right after 9/11, I was living in Texas, and I was near Houston, and Houston, because a lot of oil refineries ended up on a list of problems, etc. I was in Austin and Houston a lot, whatever. But it just made me kind of conscious of the idea that there were certain parts of America that were bigger targets than others to our enemies.
Yeah.
And New York, for example, living in New York, you're reminded of that all the time.
Yeah.
But then living on the West Coast in the last few years has felt like that. Very tremendously, the West Coast is kind of the front line.
What happened in Hawaii, remember?
Of international politics.
They activated the emergency alert system as if there was an air raid circumstance. Yeah. What was that, a year ago?
Yeah.
And for a moment, people in Hawaii were like, oh shit, they're actually launching nuclear bombs on us. There were people that wasn't a drill because it wasn't a drill. It was a for real alarm. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I think it's really happening in front of our eyes. It's all.
Do you think that threshold has already happened for you on the West Coast, and that you were just calculating in your mind when to leave, how to leave?
For nuclear
fall, nuclear hasn't happened yet. No, for your own survival. Do you feel like your survival is threatened living on the West Coast, knowing what you know now about North Korea, about international politics, etc., that the West Coast is more dangerous?
I don't think that that's anywhere within the first series of moves, to be totally honest. I think it's more of a threat to have. I'm more worried about school shootings and mass shooters in public and domestic terrorists. I think that's the thing that has me just not wanting to be in the United States. You know what I mean? Because it's just so ugly.
Yeah, I feel that. It's gross.
Yeah.
It's gross.
It isn't.
I'll be honest.
It'll be sorry to see you leave, Rob.
I look at the value.
I'm sorry.
I'd feel very sorry.
I feel very
I'll be
sorry.
honest. If I look at the value, the value of information provided by news in America, and the value of change provided by American politics, one cycle after another, the tactical, like tangible change. If I measure from those kinds of things, it's so fucking easy to imagine leaving this country. It's so easy to imagine finding literally anywhere else in any other type of existence that feels more hopeful. Because those kinds of things, like how slow this country changes for the good, and how easily this country can be corrupted, and how obvious our corruption is around the world, it's so easy to lose hope. But then you look at the fact that there are 300 fucking million of us, and most of us see this. Most of us see what's happening.
Fair.
Kind of. I don't know if we do, though. I think...
You know what I mean? Like, I think most of us kind of, like, can pretty much... Like, I think we disagree on the language we're using to describe the thing we're seeing. I think ultimately that's the biggest disagreement. But I think a big part of... I think a big... Right, that's fair. But I think a big part of, like, the partisan politics is semantics. I think the larger part of what the adult conscious population of America sees is that this is flawed. This is a fundamentally flawed idea that we're going to be the bully of the playground, and we're just going to survive forever being the meanest people on the planet.
Well, I certainly don't think that's a good formula. I'm anti-mean in general. I guess I just don't know what to do when you know you've got other really mean assholes on the playground too, running around, and it's like, okay, on a certain level, if you just go back home, they're not going back home too. They're taking the jungle gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're taking the Foursquare area and the tetherball, and you might still get the swings. I don't know.
And I'm not willing to just settle for the swings. That may be the most
militant thing I've ever heard you say, Rob. That may be the most militant, like, violent point you've ever made.
And I did it in a recess framework, right?
very
well, here's another crazy hypothesis. Taking the idea we were talking about the way that war is transforming here potentially in the near future, new tools and technologies are coming. We've already changed to this information warfare like we saw in the 2016 election. The new drone tech and robot tech and infotech capacities will allow secessionist movements in places like Cascadia to have a lot more feasible capacity if we're not really worried about the nukes at Bangor, because we can get into the back of that system and turn it off without them, even knowing. We're not worried about
Okay. So what you're saying is like with hacking and programming wherewithal, small localized forces could essentially render useless or eliminate the defenses of some of the most powerful weapon systems to the point where, okay, yeah, you've got an armada of X or a fleet of that, but our team can come in and just short circuit it all so you can't use it. So it's completely useless, right?
Not just like thinking hackers will do it, but like the technology of certain new robotic tools that can go sink a sub if it needs to, or be an aquatic drone, or like there's just a lot of new rapid development in the game of unmanned appliances in war and in the way that infotech is functioning and how crafty people are at hacking into systems. So I think a fusion of those things, it can be hardware and software basically all functioning together.
Word.
But yeah, I do think that's a possibility. I think that movements like the Kurds would be far more viable in 10 years if they had access to more of the modern tech.
Speaking of Kurds, and I don't know, I'm not like someone who's genuinely studied this a lot, but from what I understand, the Kurdish forces with which the United States was allied until recently were large portions of female fighters. Yeah. The society they built included like some of the most equitable structures, and like it was like it's like a really progressive little nation that was trying to be built, and we were supposedly on their side. I just find that interesting because when I hear the Kurds, it's like none of us know what the like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Kurdistan.
I don't know any Kurds. I've never met a Kurd in my life.
And it just sounds like they could be anyone. And then Trump today was saying they're not angels. You know, he said that several times. Well, they're not angels themselves. Whether or not they're angels, when it's just the Kurds. But I just mean like terminology-wise, the Kurds in way. You know what I mean? Like it just in the American, like, I don't know what that is, subconscious like processing realm. It's almost just like you're using the language of irrelevant, right? Like, I don't know what the Kurds are. It's a weird word. It sounds like something else. How do I even know we should be down with those guys? What's so great about Kurds anyway? All this different stuff. But when you start to expose some of who they were, from what I understand, it's like, oh man, we were on their side. That's awesome. Like, those guys sound really dope.
Yeah, and I think not only that, but I think being particular about our nomenclature, like the people of Kurdistan, when you're talking about a group of people occupying there, or when you're saying people fighting on behalf of the people of Kurdistan, or militias of Kurdish people. And then speaking of, like, even in regards to like Turkey in this incident, saying that Turkey is attacking is also a misnomer, not only because they're using Arab militias who come from all over the region to do a lot of their dirty work, but also because the people of Turkey aren't doing that. Some people in the military are doing it, and some people working for the military are doing it. That line of thinking, if globally that becomes a popular way to sort of disentangle the way the nation state is working, we can view the governments that we inhabit's foreign interactions in a lot more like actual of a way. We're looking at a few people playing with big machines that cause horrendous ruin. And they aren't everybody by a long shot. They are so close to nobody.
Yeah.
And to your point, Rob, like, we all fit in one of those horribly offensive terminology group categories, right? Somewhere in the world, the whites are used in just as an offensive throwaway. The blacks, the browns, the Christians, the atheists, the Jews, the Americans, the Muslims, the Democrats, the blah, blah, blah.
Others.
The blank, the others. Exactly. The anybody but me.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the thing that America, and just like every other fucking country and every other nationality and every tribe, has to deal with, is that idea of other people being somehow less significant, somehow less valuable, somehow less important than
and
us.
We still spin that.
Whatever fucking subdivision we use.
Weirdly,
we constantly spin it. We spin it with our people, our family, our friends, our politics, our nationality, our color, our race, or whatever. But like that's exactly what we're fighting against in the whole world.
Well, one example
is that mentality that there is a line that subdivides us.
I think we do it in the reverse too about ourselves in a way, because we'll also be like, oh, the president's going to give a State of the Union address, and he or she will say, God bless America. Well, fuck, why does God bless America more than just humankind or the earth or all countries? Why, why would God favor us? Just that thought to me is the same as the others. You know what I mean? Because like expecting and presuming the favoritism of this higher power that comes to us and not others. Why, it's kind of like this so-called God also invented the Kurds and the, all the different categories you just came up with. The Turks, the Russians, the Syrians, the Assad regime, all of those are God's people. So why would God bless the United States? You know what I mean? It's just bizarre, but it's the first step to seeing yourselves as different. And we just, it's kind of like the Pledge of Allegiance. It's like these like casual references to being the chosen ones ourselves, the United States. You know what I mean? That really are damaging, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The trick is that we may be living in a world or in a time in this world where we can see beyond that. And again, the technology of the day will either get that done or not. Right now, it's being used by the old kings to continue their kingdoms and their empires. And it's being used by them far more successfully than it is peasants, who are all of us. Every fucking buddy who doesn't have $1 billion or political power. And there's just so few of them. Like the idea, and that's the idea of like, yes, I know even they are people. Like I can get the humanity of that too. Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Mitch McConnell are human beings.
Bad example.
I think you're getting pretty stretchy there.
Are all aliens. Let's not be extreme.
I don't know.
We all know that those are terrible examples. You may as well have used. You could have used Gumby and Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, and that would have been a much better selection of actual humans.
I came with that trio on the fly, and I do like the fact that in hindsight, they all have some real particular looks.
Absolutely not human, to be clear.
The gills give it away.
The geek reptiles. Look, like, I get that we're all people. But I also think that we covered that. But the manipulations of some, as it has always been the rallying cry to create revolution for the masses. And that's like, there's a cyclical nature to this. If there is revolution actualized, it does need to come with clear future directives to not have, look, the lights can go off for a little while. And the food can get a little bit short for a little while. But revolution in this country can't have kids starving. And it can't have, this whole system shutting down. It has to be smarter than that. It has to be way more 21st century in that. It has to simply say, the military that is null and void. The people have claimed it. It's now in our hands through what means, X means, and we're going to reestablish a new government.
Okay.
New elections on this day, and we'll oversee it all.
Because I agree with you. I think that's the probably the prevailing point of closure to some degree, is that to envision and realize a better, whether it's a country or the earth or what it might be, society, it's going to take like really the long game thinking that might currently be being used by nefarious geopolitical players, right?
Yeah.
So like you're saying, it's okay if the lights go out or the food's short for a little while. maybe that's actually more important of an aspect of this than is meeting the eye, because there's going to be good and bad periods coming, right? Like it's cyclical. It's like a sine wave. So there will be, like right now, a dark time. It'll probably give way to a light time, and it'll make a lot of people think everything's sweet, and then it'll get dark again. You know what I mean? So to truly plot a future utopia or this revolution, I think you almost have to just, try to get in the shoes of the prophet, but not necessarily be prophetic. Just take for granted that there will be this cycle of good and bad, and then start plotting moves based on signs that are inevitable. Like the next time a really, really good leader is, in the United States or somewhere in the world making this big difference, we've got to press this button at that time, right? It's important. We don't know when that time is going to come, but we know the signals for what it will be. And when we get those signals, we have to press it, right? And then it's going to be like, oh, there's going to be a dark time when somebody's doing all these terrible things. We're going to have to do take this other action or press this other button. And we got to do it at that time. So maybe if your plan is basically, I think the word is anti-fragile. There's a book about it, but it's like it's designed to even like an immune system, right? Like if a disease comes in and doesn't kill it, presumably it's immune to that disease the next time it shows up, right?
Okay.
That's how an immune system would theoretically work, or at least that's a simplified version of it. So if your revolution or future plan is anti-fragile in that way, where it says, okay, whatever comes, positive things or negative things, everything is going to feed into this growing. It's designed to grow around those things. I don't know. I could see a real
I like that
potential to that, because we can't say once the weather clears up, we'll do this, but we also can't say, assuming the weather's shit forever,
And if we can have that psychology for our own personal lives, why can't we share it and have it as a sense of humanity?
Right. That's the key. I agree.
Rob, you and I have talked for so long about the species, and maybe that's an outdated term soon too, but humans being adolescents in the way that our societies function in a lot of ways, like very, very immature seeming
Sloppy.
in many ways. Yeah.
Little
and
stubborn,
angry and like petty and greedy, and all those things are how a lot of societies function. Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, like, what about getting into our 20s at least and landing a solid job? Like, I think that's what we need, actually, as a species. I think we need a job.
Humanity needs its first real job.
Yeah, we need our first real job. And I think
that would be the
saving this fucking planet.
That would be the dopest platform for president of the world.
Humanity needs its first new job.
Its first real job.
First real job.
And I'm here to make sure it happens.
Enough with the paper routes.
Damn, that feels.
Enough
that
with the
sounds
paper
good.
routes. Let's apply for Jamba Juice.
Well, I think that should close. That should probably close up the 2-minute and 16-minute and 31-second Flawedcast.
Damn.
Unless people have dedications or God bless yous to do, but we should huddle after real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I feel like we should say God bless yous to dedications in general. We should give a God bless you to the idea of dedications.
Does Gazoom type mean God bless you?
I think so. I think that means may the evil spirits not enter through your nostrils while you inhale after you sneeze.
And if we're dealing with gods, at least name them by name in particular, so I know exactly who you're talking about. Like
Zeus bless you.
Yeah,
Thor,
exactly. Minerva.
Thor,
Yeah.
Yep. Thor, Zeus, and Minerva bless you. Yeah.
Neptune bless you.
Medusa does not give a shit. She doesn't care.
Okay, well,
indeed, yeah. Keep chucking. Flawedcast Nation, thank you for being real. Thank you for sticking with us. It's love. It's real. It's looseness and
I thought you were
happiness
making
and
some other sign,
peace.
Rob.
No, I don't. Well, he was making the little
Rob,
heart.
Rob was making gang signs for a second, but like it turns out they were hearts.
Turned into a heart.
Yeah.
Love.
Yep. I thought they
He's
were
a
really
gangster
perverse
of love.
gangs.
I think is how you can come
He's
out of
a
that.
gangster of love.
Yeah.
I think so.
I like it.
I bid you adieu.
Peace to the nation.
Rock and roll.
But let's stay on the
Stop
call.
recording.